Hey everyone, welcome back. A couple of things I wanted to just go over really quick. Some things to look at for tomorrow. Tomorrow is obviously Tuesday, and we have the CPI data coming out tomorrow. We'll take a quick look at an article that I just found on that. And we also have Iris Energy providing their quarterly results. So we'll just get into those things. As always, not financial advice. You guys know the drill here. I'm investing in the following coins and companies. Full disclosure, if you enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing. Hitting the like button helps out the YouTube algorithm, helps me out. All right, so let's take a look at really quick on the CPI here. So Tuesday's inflation rate could show price moderating as gasoline and travel costs have fallen. A couple of things we want to look at it here is the report is also a key because it's expected to influence the Federal Reserve's decision on how much to raise interest rates next week, and more importantly in the long term, which I agree, but I don't think there's going to be much hesitation by the Fed, I think, to go 75 basis points. I think that's pretty much baked in already into the markets. And I think the markets are kind of rebounding a little bit. They're up in the after hours right now as well. Both the Dow Jones, the S&P, and NASDAQ are both up right now. And I think it's just basically that they're, anticipating that inflation is going to be down from, obviously, from July. July was 8.5. I think some of them are thinking it's going to be around 8, which would be great news. But that's obviously baked in. If it comes in lower than 8, I think then maybe the Fed might be a little bit more hesitant to go with the 75 basis points. It might go down to maybe 50 basis points. But we'll see tomorrow, obviously. And then next week when the Fed meets with the FOMC, we'll get, obviously, the details whether we're going 75 basis points or 50 basis points. If we go 50 basis points, I think we're going to be in a nice little rally here. So continuing on here, so CPI for all items is projected to have actually declined by 0.1% month over month in August after a flat reading in July. According to Dow Jones, on an annual basis, headline CPI would then be running at a pace of 8%, down from 8.5% in July, which obviously would be good news. And for the Fed, the report is widely expected to confirm it needs to keep up its fight against inflation with an interest rate hike next week of 75 percentage points, the third of this size in a row. If inflation data is weaker than expected, some economists say there's an outside chance the Fed could raise by just 0.5%. Obviously, that's a very small percentage change, but it all depends on the CPI data that we get in tomorrow. That would obviously be great if that happened. Obviously, prices at the pump have been coming down. We did peak at about $5.01 in mid-June on the national average here. And that's over here, right there. And we dropped all the way to a 3.71 per gallon just this Monday, it looks like, according to AAA. So that's obviously good news. That's obviously bringing down some of the inflation fears that we've had. And then down here, strategist says the Fed September 21 rate decision may be affected by the August CPI report, but the details inside the report may be more important in terms of what they say about the long-term outlook. So what are they going to be more continuing to be hawkish, or are they going to go into more of a little bit dovish stance going forward? So that'll obviously be interesting. That's something we want to look at next week. And this key question for the market, since some pros expect the Fed to pause by year end. So we're talking about possibly pausing inflation or rate hikes by the end of the year. Others expect a pause early next year, and some investors believe the central bank will begin to reduce interest rates in the second half of 2023. So that obviously all depends on the CPI data that we get in and inflation. If inflation is coming down and we're seeing a reduction in the labor force market as well, other things, contraction in the economy, other things like that, that was obviously going to get, that will obviously get the Fed's notice and possibly start easing up a little bit here and possibly reducing rates, which would be also great. And that is it for the CPI. So something that we want to keep an eye out for tomorrow is obviously where does the CPI data come in at? And then that will kind of help us out with Bitcoin and Ethereum and all that that's going on there. That's obviously risk on and risk off. I think right now we're risk off currently, but we have been kind of going back risk on with Bitcoin going up quite nicely here in the last week. So we'll keep an eye on it, see what happens tomorrow. I'll obviously report on it. So stay tuned for that. And then next is on the agenda for tomorrow is Iris Energy is set to release their fiscal year 22 results and host conference call September 13th. So that will be interesting to see what they actually come in at. And they are going to do a conference call 5 p.m. Eastern time as well. I'll see if I can catch that or not. If I do catch it, I'll take some notes on it and I'll provide those notes to you guys tomorrow as well. But here's where I have them at. So Iris Energy, I have them at roughly 13.5 million in revenue for the quarter. This is obviously the quarter ending in June here. And I've been down on a lot of my miners here. I've been off a little bit on the downside, actually. So I think they might be actually a little bit higher than that. If we just go up, I think on average I've been down about 7%. So if we multiply that times 0.107, we're looking possibly to be about 14.5 million. That's kind of where I'm looking to be at with them, based on what I've seen with other miners being off on those miners as well. So if we get to that, 14.5 is obviously going to be a pretty good number. Here it'll be pretty close to the 14 or 15 million that they got in Q1, or it might be their Q3 then, if they're doing fiscal year 2022. But that would be obviously pretty good, considering that Bitcoin has obviously fallen pretty hard since then. While we're tracking Bitcoin here, we can see that Bitcoin was basically at the end of January at 38,000, February was 43, March was 45. So obviously really good prices for Bitcoin there. And then we obviously fell to 19,000 by the end of June. So if they can get close to that number, I think that would be fantastic. They have been growing quite nicely here. As we can see, they've been pretty much growing their BTC production pretty much every single month. They did have a month or two where they were off a little bit. February obviously was a shorter month, only 28 days in it. So that's kind of expected to be down a little bit. Pretty much all the miners were down in February. And then they've been pretty much going up here ever since, except for a little low here in June of 148 from 151. And then they had a nice increase here in August to 301 BTC, which was great. Their BTC per petahash average has been really good, and that's basically because they're providing their average hash rate. They're not providing the actual end of month hash rate. That would obviously decrease that a little bit, but nonetheless, that's actually one. Looking at the miners, they're like the top 3 usually, top 4 miners as far as efficiency goes for them. So that would be really good as well. Obviously, big things that we want to take a look at is if we look at the miners comparison here from the previous quarter reporting, we can see that they had total current assets of 201 million, total current liabilities was 54 million. So this is the thing that we want to look at is total current liabilities was what are the total current assets. Their current ratio is at 3.78 and total liabilities is 98 million. So that's pretty good. We want to see if that's actually come down a little bit or if it's increased at all. And their debt to equity ratio is 0.214, which is really good. And their current assets minus total liabilities would be about 103 million left over. So that is actually really good there. If they can maintain this, because we're kind of seeing some of the other miners here go into the negative territory, where in Q1, for the most miners, we saw maybe 3, I think, that were in red. Here now, after Q2 reporting, we're seeing a lot more, obviously, being in red here, being in possible trouble here. We saw, obviously, Mawson last week having to sell off Site to CleanSpark. They were obviously down 78 million from that. That's obviously contributed to it, possibly, I think. Is trying to get rid of some of their debt. They did have a lot of debt here, 90 million compared to only current assets of 12 million. So that obviously contributed to it. So that's kind of what I'm looking for tomorrow is how healthy is their balance sheet as far as total current assets, current liabilities, and then total liabilities, and how much do they have left over after everything if they had to basically pay their total liabilities. So we'll keep an eye on that one. And for that reason, well, for several reasons. Number one, their balance sheet has been pretty good here, considering what we'll have to see obviously tomorrow. And tomorrow is going to determine whether or not this is another one that I want to invest in. So as you guys know, I'm invested in Bitfarms, CleanSpark, and Hive. And this is one that I'm possibly going to look into also. And the reason for that is because of their nice, consistent growth here. And the other reason is obviously they don't have a lot of debt, nor do they dilute shares a lot. So they only have 55 million shares out right now. Their BTC HODL is 0. They're basically selling everything that they mine every month. So they're funding operations and growth that way. And they still have pretty good hash rate growth to go. They're only at about 2.2 exahash right now. Future hash rate is supposed to be about 15 exahash. They're only about 14.6% operational right now. That's still a 581% increase in growth. It is going to take them a while to get there, as they do have these in Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4 of 2022. And then we're also getting into 2023 with Q1, Q2, and Q3. That's an additional, in next year, that's an additional 8 exahash right now. This time around, if they can get everything done this year, they would be at 7 exahash. So the majority of their hash rate would come in next year. So this is one of the ones, like I keep saying, is that's gotten me kind of interested based on the performance and how they are operating right now. But as always, do your own research on these. Do not do as I do unless you've researched them fairly enough and you feel confident yourself in investing in them. But I'm just letting you know what I'm doing. But like I said, tomorrow is obviously going to be a decisive factor for me as far as the balance sheet information, how that comes out, revenues, and then also want to see their expenses as far as how much does it cost them to mine the Bitcoins that they are mining. So that's what I'm looking for tomorrow. I did also pick up today some more Rivian stock shares and some more Bitfarms. I wanted to get my dollar cost average price down a little bit on Bitfarms. Got it down to $2.02, which is pretty good. I may end up buying a little bit more Bitfarms just to get it down below $2, and then I'll probably end up going, if the numbers are good for Iris tomorrow, I'll probably start dollar cost averaging into them a little bit as well, along with CleanSpark and Rivian as well. So that's just my take on that. Something to look forward to tomorrow. We'll see what the data is like. If you guys obviously enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe, helps me out tremendously. Thank you so much for watching. As always, love you guys. Have a great evening. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.